In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a previous and next button like this here. And you can see here, the moment we click on this, you can see it will correspond nicely with it. The data is starting to change and the button is moving as well. And the moment we go to the next, go to the very end here with the week 52, with value number 52, and then you can see the next button is not anymore able to click because there's no more data in here. So this is quite interesting and useful to create a bit more engagement with your viewers. So let's start to explore how to do this. In this video, we're going to focus on one of the viewers' questions, which is how to show dynamic data with a previous or next button in Chart.js. So this question came from one of my other videos. Sadly enough, the video or the comment is not able to be shown somehow. So I will have to ignore that one for now, or I'm not able to show you that question. However, the request is this here, how we can create a previous or next button. So let's start to work on that immediately. So first of all, what we need to have here is a chartjs3.com getting starting link. And in here, we're going to grab the default code immediately. So I'm going to copy this all. Once I copy this, I'll just paste this in here. And then what I will do here is I'll just cut it out here and paste the title in there. Alright, so if I save this, refresh, there we are, we have everything now. So what we want to do here eventually is to have a basically go back or a previous button and a next button to view the data. So what we're going to do first is we're going to add up two buttons, and afterwards we're going to update this data to quickly create let's say 50 data points here. Alright. So what we're going to do here first, let's make the button very straightforward. We have two buttons here. This is button 1, and we have another button. So I guess this would be previous, and then here we have next. Alright, so we have these buttons here, that's nice. What we want to do next is the data here. So how do we quickly add up? So we could add up here manually, but I'm just going to use a quick loop. That is easy to do and that you can follow along as well. So what we're going to create here is a constant or an array, which is the array of week. And what I will do here is just weeks. Every week should be looped here, so we have week 1 up to 52. Another one thing what I want is a constant for the week data point. So week data points, which is basically an array, but then specifically the matching values of that week. Alright, so in here what we're going to do now is just to create a quick for loop, and with this for loop say I equals 1 in this case, because we start with week 1, and then we say here we keep on iterating it until we hit equal to 52, as in 52 weeks, and then we say here I plus plus for incremental. Alright, so in here, very simple, we say week, and then we have push, and what we push here basically is the week value. And we can say a week and then concatenate the I. Probably the easiest way to do this is by using the backticks here. So we're going to use here backticks, and if you're wondering what are the backticks, these are not quotations or single quotation, it's backticks. It's just below your escape button on your keyboard. Alright, so then we say here week, and then we say here, because this is an easier way to concatenate $, and curly braces, and here I. Alright, so once we have this, what I also want is of course the data point, and the data points will be very straightforward as well. It will just be a copy almost, except here we just put in here the I value, so it'll be 1 up to 52, and this of course will be our week data points. Alright, so now we have this. What I want to do just to be sure, console log, and then we just say here week, and save that. Refresh, and then we open up a developer tab. You should see an array with 52 items. There we are. 52 items, and then week 52 is the very last value. That looks nice, so I assume that the data points or the week data points is equal to that as well. So I'm going to copy this array basically, and then I'll just change the label here into that. The next one is the week data point, and we're going to replace this with that. Alright, so here we could just simplify this, just only have one background color here, because we don't need so much information in this case, just simple. And then the same here for the border color. Alright, So now we have all of this here. If I save this now and refresh, you can see we have a lot of data points here. It looks absolutely stunning. We have all of this here. I guess the console log could be removed right now. So I'm going to remove the console log here. Save that, refresh. Alright. So now what I need to do here is basically, because right now we're seeing everything, and I don't want to see everything. I only want to see, let's say, 7 weeks at a time. So it's easy and digestible to understand. So what we're going to do here in the scales, we're going to focus here now basically on the X scales. So we say X scales, and here we can control the minimum and maximum value. So we say X scales, make sure you have curly braces here, and then minimum. And this minimum will be, let's say, we can start with 7. And then we have a max value, which would be 13. And what is this exactly? Well, these are basically the scale array items. And then you might say here 7, or if I would do here 0, you will see immediately, let's do 0 and 6. Because this is an array that starts with array number 0. And the 0 array is week 1. So if I save this now, refresh, unexpected identifier. Alright, so the issue here was just simply a comma. Make sure you have a comma here or else you will have an error. Alright, and refresh, and there we are. So now we have no errors and we have all of these numbers here shown. This is week 1 up to week 7. So let's say we want to have week, doesn't matter, let's say week 7 up till 13. So that's the next one. Then you will start with week 8 and up till 14. And if you count here, these are 7 data points here that we can see at a time. Alright, so what we want to do now is to control this. And basically we need to control here with a function that will be triggered in with these two here. Alright, so what we're going to do here is to create a function. And this function, we can call it anything. So let's say here function next, I'll just say next data point or next data. I'm just making it up. Probably something else would be more suitable. And what we want to do here is basically the following. We want to grab this so we know our starting point. We need to know our starting point. And then we also need to recalculate the moment we click on certain things. So let's assume here I want to go up or down with 6. So or 7 points. Let's say here we're going to go back to week 1 up till 7. So we have to go up and down with 6, or we have to deduct those as well. So what we are going to do here is basically this. We can say the following. I'm going to say it first of all constant. And then this is basically the starting point of the scale. So we can say start scale equal. And then we first grab this specific point here. How to do that? You go from my chart to config, or you can see a my chart config, and this config refers to here. And then we go to options, scales, X, and then here the specific item that we need depending on start or end. So we say here my chart dot config dot, and then we go here from config, we go to options, and then we say dot scales dot X, and then we get here the starting value, it's min. So dot min. Alright, so once we have this, we can even console log this now and just say here start scale. Grab this to confirm, and then what I want to do, of course, I need to make sure the on click here is active. So say here on click equals next data, and then here grab this as well. Alright, we save that, refresh, and now if I press on any of these, you can see our starting point. Beautiful. You can see it here. The starting point shows here nicely. Alright, so next what we want to do now is we want to have also the ending point. So that would be here, and then this would be max, because the max is important here, and then we say here end scale. Alright, so now what we're going to do here is the following, because if you look at it, we have this function double connected. We could do it in 2 individual functions, but it's quite redundant. And then you have to refactor it to make it in 1 function, because you can do it optimizing one function here. But if we're going to do it in 1 function, we need to figure out which button we click on. This is very important, or at least we need to grab the value here. Well, luckily this is quite simple if you understand how. So what we're going to do here is the following. First of all, we're going to put in here a certain value, And we assume here always this will be here a deduction of the value. So if you click on it, it should go down with 6 points or 7 points. And here, if you click on it, it should go up with 7 points. So we can say it's 7 and here -7. Well, I guess here should be -6, and the reason why -6 because we are working with arrays starts at 0. All right, so then here it should increase with 6 points. So we save this here, refresh, and then of course here we can say here the value, and I realize here what we need to do here, not only this, we will need another one which would eventually be the next item as well. So here should be probably a 6 as well, and this should be, if I'm not mistaken, another 6 as well, because we're going to use these ending and the what was the sorry, the starting point and the ending point. So that's most important. I wonder this one here, I have a suspicion this might be maybe 0. So we'll see with that one. So we're going to say here the following: start, comma, end. All right, so what we want to do here, because we grab this, we have the starting scale. So if I click on this and then I can just say here, very simple, we're going to say here plus start. Let's see what happens. So I refresh now and I click on previous. Now we go to 1, and this is correct because we are here at 7. We go back to 1. If we go next, it will go to 13. All right, so it will start to increase. So this is probably what we need. All right, so let's start to work on this. So what we're going to do here is the following. We're going to say here which button we clicked, all right? Or basically not even which button we clicked here. It should start here with the default values in here. And meaning by that is whatever we see here, we grab the default values, and then if we go up or down, it should match. I guess not which button we clicked here, but the position by default if, and this is if we don't are, for example, at the very beginning. If we're at the beginning, we shouldn't go more than lower than 0, because there's not -1, -2, etc., etc. We don't have those data. We only have till 0 because the array starts at 0. But the same story as well. If we're at the very max, which is 52, after week 52, we have no more data points as well. So that's what we have to consider here. So for this, what we can do here, let's start with the basics. We're going to rearrange this by saying mychart.config.options.scales. And basically what we're going to do here is grab this value here. And there is a .x and then .min. And there is a equal what? This will be equal to the start scale value, whatever the value would be. And then the next one will be exactly the same, except here in this case, this will be based on the ending scale. So this is max, and then we say here end scale. Once we did that, we say here mychart.update. So let's see how this works, because you can see we have a lot of code to work with. And once I refresh, if I click on this, you can see here something happens, but not really much. Alright, so I'm going to check what's going on here. We have to see what is going on, and of course I realize it doesn't change yet because we didn't do any adjustments with this. So what was the real issue here? These values here were not yet implemented in there. So what we need to do here is very straightforward. We will say a plus start value, and the other one will be plus the end value. Alright. So once we have this, and you might wonder, we have this here, but this one is a minus. So don't worry about that, because if it's a minus, plus and minus still maintains minus, so or negative. So that will not impact the code here. So if I refresh now, let's see what happened. Alright, so it's working. Then we move on here, it works as well. It works nice, but of course after a while you can see here we're going down here, and this, well, it doesn't move luckily. However, some parts should be fine-tuned here. Alright, so what we're going to do now, we have this part, we had figured it out, but what we need to do now is the next part here on this. And that is eventually we need to reassign here, of course, the min and max. And I do notice that you might notice as well, if we do previous, something is not adding up here. And I realize what it should be here is here should be probably as well -6. Am I correct here? This should be maybe -6 as well. And if that is the case, we could just only do 1 here. That would be far more smarter. There we are. All right. So we got this here, but you can see here something is happening, and then we're going too much, and then it's negative. That won't work. And the same here. This works, but until we hit the very top, and then it zooms in here as well. So what we need to do is we need to put a lock on it, or a break, or probably it's a lock to restrict it the moment it goes too far in here. That's like this here. We don't have that many data points here. We only have 52. So what we want to do here is an if statement. And this if statement says the following: if. And then here we can say here if. Well, let's look at here right now. We can look at the very end scale. All right. Meaning at the end value, if the end scale, all right, is larger than the amount of 52 array value points. So how do we do that? So we say here week dot length, and you wonder where a week. Remember, we had 52 weeks in the array here. So what we're just doing is, as we say, we're going to count the amount of data points we find in here in the weeks, and if it's surpassing this amount compared to the scale here, which is here, you can see here as well, once it starts to pass after 52, then we have a problem. At that moment, we want to do a specific item. So what we're going to do here is basically, we'll say here my chart, and we can just really grab this. If we say here my chart this, and what we're going to do here is if the week is bigger than that, all right, so then what we must do here, let me think, then we say here this should be the value what needs to be here. I guess not 52, it's a, I'm just lost for words, sorry. I guess it's 40 plus 46 or something like that. I will have to check that later on. And then another one will be, and the max, that one will be basically this part here. I guess we can do it like that. We say here the week length -1, and I guess here should be then the week length -7. Why -7? We do it first -1 here, and then still 6 more. All right, so let me just double check this one because I am somehow lost for words and somehow confused, just to make sure. We refresh here, and then we click. All right, so what happened here? We have 6 items here. All right, let me do this one more time because we should have 7 only here. Unless, all right, so we have 44. All right, we had this one, and then we have here 50. So if I press this again, we should move to 52, but we should have 7 data points here. And you can see here we're not having 7, we only have 6, but we do move to 52. So this is correct. The only thing what we need to do here is then eventually this. We say here -7. Oh, I thought I had some number 7 here, but apparently I forgot about it or didn't do anything about it. So let me double check here again. All right, so we've got this here. So this is done. So now we have the first one. So the next one will basically be another if statement. So we're doing an if statement here, but then here the starting scale, that should be not smaller than 0. Well, because why? We have the arrays here. Start with the first array, so it should always start at the 0 point. So I guess we can say here this equals 0, and my chart.config options.scales x.max, and then we say here we can check. Well, we can just fix it on 6. All right. So that's basically this value here, or maybe the end value. Oh, we cannot use the end value, of course, but we need to have a starting value. This is our default. So if I save this here, refresh, and there we are. And then, oh, let me double check that. Go back here. You can see here, it works nicely. Even if we continue on, it goes more negative. It doesn't respond to that. Next, if we go in here, maintains this value here. All right, so we're done here, except for one thing. these buttons should correspond nicely. So what we're going to do here is just very last one, just a tiny item as well. We can do here the button. So it's a document.get element by ID, and then what would be here, if I'm not mistaken, this is the next button. All right, so we're going to give it an ID. Say next. No, this is the previous, sorry. Previous. And then the other one here, the ID, will be next. And then you can see this here. I realized we could just remove this to even make it more efficient, because it doesn't make sense to have a double, but that's all right for now. Say here, document.get element by ID next, and then we say here disabled. If this is at the very max value, we say disabled equals true. So here you have the first one, then the other one will be on this, the document.get element in the previous disabled set true. And then once we did this, the only thing what we need to do is every single time we loop through this, we first not disabled, or we set disable on false, or enable it. So that's the right term. We will enable it first, and then after it will check if every one of these conditions would match, it will disable it by default. So we say here this, and then we have the next and the previous. Well, let's put the previous here above. That is probably more correct way of writing it. So the previous, and then we say here disable false, and then we say here false as well. And then as you can see here, it is first false, and then it will go to true. If the condition here is met, it will set the disable on true. Very simple. Refresh. Let's go back to previous. All right, we go back here, and there we are. Now it's disabled, but the moment we click on this, you can see it's enabled again, because it will just check the certain state case here, or basically the argument or the if statement, if it is correct or not. And if I go to the very end here, same story, it will just go here, and that's it. And then I'm not able to press on it. And this is basically how you create a next and a previous and a next button in a chart in Chart.js. So if you like this video and you will enjoy it, and maybe you want to learn even more, I would highly recommend you, and if you're ready for the challenge, to check out how to create a speedometer with a needle gauge chart in Chartjs. It's a challenging one, but absolutely good to learn, especially if you want to customize more and more items in your chart in Chartjs. The link should pop up somewhere already on the screen, so you should be able to click on it if you are ready for this challenge.